Hey everybody, welcome to the CCM Lab 9. And today we're going to be talking about continuing what we've been talking about, proposal writing and pricing strategy. My name is Abraham Shong. For those of you who don't know me, if you're new here, for everybody else, you know me. And then my other instructor for the day is Dan Moffitt. Dan, you want to say a few words to everybody before we get going?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dan Moffitt. I'm going to help Abe with this proposal writing piece and some of the details about one of the matrices, I think, and it's all going to be worthwhile and pay off for everybody, I think.
Super. Yeah, and one of the homework was for you guys to find some opportunities. And so today, I want you guys to think through who, if you have an opportunity, we want to use one of your live opportunity for Dan to create a requirement matrix. That way you can kind of get a working document. So that's the purpose of today's labs. That's one of the main initiatives today. So if you have some proposals, or not proposals, but opportunities that you're interested in, ideally a service type of opportunity. And then we're going to review a few opportunities in a little bit, and then we're going to choose one for Dan to use it as a working document. So with that, let me dive in today's agenda. We are at the proposal level in the 5P success formula here. And then we are in the step number 9, proposal and opportunity. So this is kind of like at that stage there. Today, we're going to be covering a quick review of the proposal process, and then your pricing approach, and then your review bid opportunities that you guys have been looking at. We'll look at a few, and then we will choose one for our compliance matrix. So that's the agenda for today. And then some Q&A time also at the end. All right, so the proposal process. This is, the more you get comfortable with this graph here, the easier for you to kind of understand what needs to happen in the proposal process. So this is the full life cycle capture management graph here. So the capture process, as a capture manager for your business, you're responsible for all of these things happening. Now, you're not supposed to execute everything, because it's impossible for one person to execute all of these things there. Unless you are a one woman, one man operation, then yes, you are responsible for executing all of this here. But everybody needs to try, right? And so I'm going to share a quick story, and then we'll go into this process here. So some of you guys know I was born in the jungles of Laos. My parents were first generation to make contact with the world. Everything up until their generation was oral history. And we were a people of the earth, a nomadic group of people. We live up the mountains, and we go where there's food, we go where there's land to crop. We follow the different type of herd. And so we kind of just live off the land in that way. And it was until the 30s and 40s where some French priests came to live among us in the mountains and learned the language. And then they eventually gave us the written text and so forth. So, but why do I share that? Because when we live, I grew up in these villages here, and so in these villages here, you usually have someone who's each person is responsible for different things. Everybody has their own skill set, and so as you're part of the team, it's almost impossible to survive in the jungle by yourself. Part of it is there's wild animals, and you'll get eaten if you're out there by yourself. You're not going to survive too long. So you need a team. You need a village around you. And I remember at night, we would gather around the campfire, and stories would be told. And as a kid, the elders would share stories, and that's how you learn. Because there was no Netflix, there was no Facebook, there was no television, there was no media of anything like that. And so your media at night was the stories that's passed down from generation to generation, and the highlight of the day. As the team went out and they hunted a wild boar, or they hunted some wild animal, they share those stories and how the hunt went, and how they were able to trap an animal, or how they were able to to gather certain food for the tribe that day. So that's kind of normal. Well, in government contracting, as a capture manager, you got to form a tribe around yourself in the same way. For your business to succeed, you got to have certain tools, right? And so when we went out hunting, some people use spears, some people use bow and arrow, and then a few at that point of some people were actually using guns at that point there. And so you got to have the right tools, the right equipment to go out there and do what you need to do so that you can be successful in that hunt. And look for opportunity is a hunt. Creating your proposal is the process. And so you have to understand how it's done. And so part of you, all of us gathering today, this is kind of like the campfire, right? This is the beginning of the campfire and your team. And we're telling stories around the campfire so that you can start to say, okay, sometimes I learn by somebody else doing it, or sometimes you learn by actually practicing. And so capture management, this is really what you're doing. You're going through this process here. And then your proposal process starts off with your blue team, red team, and green team. And in your blue team, we covered that a little bit last night, but your red team is made up of your red team that reviews the proposal itself, the management and the technical proposal. And then there is a red team that manages, that reviews the cost proposal. And there's another team that, red team that makes sure that all of the documents related to the subcontractors, the teaming partner, that they're all there as well, and that's ready to go. And it's part of this area is tied to past performance, tied to submitting their resume to your team so that you can have all that packaged together. And then it finally goes to the review team. And in the review team, you have the final review, the production team, they bind everything together if it's paper submission, or they assemble all of the different documents into one document. Usually some agency, they just want one document. Some agencies, they want it in different type of even though it's an email, they want it in different file name. So the green team will make sure that the instructions are met based upon the submission requirement. And then someone, the capture manager or the CEO or someone it could be the program manager, the proposal manager, it could be somebody who's ultimately responsible for submitting it on a timely manner to the agency itself. So that's kind of the proposal process. Once that's done, then it goes into your fulfillment team. And in the fulfillment team, you have your internal team, which is your company and your team. So within your internal team, you have your program manager, you have your project manager, your contract manager, and your subject matter experts. So that's your internal team. Now, your outsourced team has to do with legal counsel, has to do with your safety, quality, cyber, proposal writers. Sometimes you outsource proposal writers, your cost estimators. If you're not great with that, especially like around construction. Construction, normally you bring in a cost estimator. If it's big construction project, it's too much for one person. Or even for your own internal team. So usually you bring out there are companies that specialize in just cost estimation. And there's different softwares out there that you can use as well. But there's, you may outsource that. And there's usually a CPA, or HR, some compliance team that you work with, finance, lenders, banks that you work with, bonding and insurance in some projects. Construction, every project over $100,000 at the federal level, bonding is required. If it's a project under 100,000, then bonding is at the discretion of the contracting officer. So keep that in mind if you're in construction. And then also your primes, the large business, other small business that you work with. So that's your outsourced team here. So your role as a capture manager is to make sure you understand all these moving pieces and make sure that the project is scoped out, proposal written, won and fulfilled, and then you leverage that relationship to win other projects. That's really what you want to do with that. Today's show is brought to you by the Certified Capture Manager Program.
The Certified Capture Manager or CCM program was designed to support entrepreneurs, sales, and business development professionals in the government marketplace. The CCM program will help to develop or enhance your ability to win more government contracts. This is a professional certification program where you will receive hands-on guidance from instructors taking you through the life cycle of the capture management process. Learn what normally takes 36 months in just 12 weeks of the program. What's included in the CCM training program? 12 weeks of instructor-led classes, a business coach to support you review assignments for accuracy and accountability, mastermind sessions, lab sessions, open office hours, the CMBOK or Capture Management Body of Knowledge training material, the GovFastTrack.com software, where is a project management tool to guide you through the process, the GovLMS Learning Management System, which is a self-guided online course with exam questions, the bootcamp. The Gov Bootcamp is a virtual government contracting bootcamp, test portals, the CMBOK exam, and the CCM professional certification upon passing the exam. Learn more about the Certified Capture Manager or CCM program at capturemanagement.org, www.capturemanagement.org, capturemanagement.org.
So any questions about this process here? You guys good? Okay, let's continue. So a few more things about pricing and costing strategies. Some additional tips around this here, which we haven't covered yet. As you do this here, you want to research industry norms. And what I mean by that is you can go to different associations. There's trade association for almost every single niche markets out there. So if you're looking for a pricing on, like, Chris and I, we actually went to the business census, and the business census actually have a pricing about food. And they track it, I think, on a weekly basis in terms of the cost of food, chicken, beef, all of that. They track it, and for a national average and a regional average of what food costs are going, or perishable meats, fruits, vegetables are going for. And so they do that, and so that's one way to do it. Or you can go to trade association, construction associations if you're in construction. If you are in janitorial, there's different janitorial associations that you can go to, and you can look at the reports, look at the data that they have, and establish your pricing norms by understanding what the industry is going for. Now, again, your pricing is unique to you, so don't go by what's norm out there, but that gives you a basis of where you need to be. And then benchmark after competitors, and we talked about that in terms of using GSA Advantage as well as calc.gsa.gov. So these are resources. And then do a FOIA request. Anybody done a FOIA request, or let's talk about 10 points for who can give me the definition of FOIA.
Freedom of Information Act.
Okay, George.
Yeah.
Freedom of Information Act. Yes, that's what FOIA stands for, Freedom of Information Act. As a business in the government contracting space, your proposal that you submit is public information because it's government, and all these different things are public information. Now, the agency is not just going to put your proposal out there for everybody to see. Is usually filed away in some type of server or in a folder somewhere, and so it's not necessarily publicly available. But because it's public information, anyone can go and ask for a copy of your proposal. Well, you want to use that to your advantage. You can go out there and do a FOIA request of your competitor's proposal. You just so you just have to go out there and just do it, and that's part of how you build your library. I had one of our previous cohort, this company, they were interested in doing work in the state of Colorado, and they found a project similar to the one that they were interested in, and they did a FOIA request with the state of Colorado, and the contracting officer gave them the competitor's pricing proposal itself, and so that they could say, okay, this is how they establish their pricing. This is the proposal. And so you can use that as benchmark. Now, some projects have high sensitivity, and in those type of situation, they will redact maybe pricing. They may redact certain key information. When you submit your proposal, anything that you do not want to be publicly disclosed, you want to go ahead and put a disclaimer on there that certain items, and you can make a kind of like a footnote with a little asterisk, say that this item here is private and should not be disclosed publicly. And so there's, so you can do that if you're submitting something you don't want it to be publicly displayed. But you use FOIA as a way to take advantage and build your proposal, your pricing library. And we'll do that in one quick second here. And then the other thing you want to do is, in terms of establishing your pricing, is don't start off by being a prime contractor. Start off by being a subcontractor, or find a teaming partner who's more experienced than you, and then learn from them. And then most primes, some of the bigger guys, they don't want you, they will not give you a copy. Even though you're on the team, they will not give you a copy of the proposal and the price. But most mid-sized and small companies, they share the information. Yes, some of it is trade secret, but most of it is, some of them, they, because it's a trusted environment, and part of how you create trust is you give trust, right? And so some of your mid-sized small business, and you're working with them, they're going to give a copy of the proposal. They're going to give you a copy of the price, and the management and all of that, all these documents, your teaming partner will openly share that with you if you create a trusted environment with somebody. So that's how you create your pricing, by learning and being on a team or as a subcontractor on a project. Now, if you are a subcontractor, most of the time you're not going to get a copy of the proposal and the price. But if you're on a teaming relationship, generally is normal for both companies to share that information with each other. So that's another good way to build your library, build your pricing strategy. And then the other is to track an opportunity from the RFQ, RFP stage all the way to award, and to see who won and what the price was. So if you want to figure out how much was the price on this opportunity, then you just track it. And you go, when you go to sam.gov, you find an opportunity, say, okay, this is a good match for my business. Click on the tracking alert notification. And then every time there's a change, and when it's awarded, you get notified in terms of the award. And then you can see that had you written your proposal and submitted your price based upon your own approach would have been, let's assume, $1 million. Well, you see who won, and their price may be $990,000. Their price may be $1.2 million. So if you track it from beginning to end, you have a copy of the RFP. You have you can do a FOIA request on the proposal that won, and you can also look at their pricing, so that now you can benchmark, right? So that's another good technique in terms of establishing your pricing strategy. So let's look at a few things, and then we're going to talk about some of the proposal matrix here. So let's go and let's do FOIA requests. And so anybody have an agency that you want us to look at? Give me an agency. No agency?
Veterans Affairs.
What was that?
Veterans Affairs.
VA?
Yeah, VA.
Okay. Okay, so very simple in terms of how you get to the right place. You just put FOIA and then put the agency name and request. Something very simple like that. It usually would take you to the right place, and then you would look for FOIA requests, something like that, or go to the main site. It would take you to pretty much the same place. And each agency, they do a little bit differently. And so you want to go here and you read through how you do a FOIA request with this specific agency. And so they tell you, okay, so if you're looking for Veteran Business Administration records, this is how you do it, other records. And so you probably want to click on other records. Or what we're really looking for is, let's go to the VA central office there. We're looking for contracts, right? And they tell you all these are different point of contact. Office of Organization, Office of Secretary, Deputy Assistant, Debt Management, Office of Secretary, Employment, all kinds of different information that's out there. So you want to do your best to find the right place. Okay, so Office of Acquisition, Logistics, Contracting, Procurement, Policy Services. So this would be your point of contact here. And there's another Veteran Affairs General Acquisition, National Acquisition Center. So this most likely will be your right person. And so you want to give them a phone call. And then you also want to shoot them an email and say, hey, I'm looking to do a request. What's your process? You can also reach out to the OSTBU. Right here, the Office of Small Disadvantaged Tyrone. And the OSTBU office here, you can do it through them as well. So there's a few places that you can get it done for contracting. Now, some small agency, you can just do it. They only have one office, but big agencies like the VA, they have multiple people. Now, when you send in your FOIA request, they usually have a form and you want to follow the form. And in it, you want to put in the original solicitation. If you're trying to build your proposal sample, right? You're looking for the original solicitation number. If you have the award ID, include the award ID, put the dates, as much information as you can so that it's easy for them to pull up the document for you. Some of them will ask you to pay, like 50 cents per page, 10 cents per page, $1 per page. It just depends. They do that so that people just don't ask for a whole bunch of document and it becomes burdensome for them. So, and don't worry about being a burden for them because their job is, you already pay them, right? Taxpayers, right? As a taxpayer, you already pay their salary. But you want to make it easy for them to give you the information you're seeking after. So this is a good way to build your proposal library. You can do this here with any government agencies, federal, state, local. So if you want to do FOIA requests, City of Chicago. So Freedom of Information Act, City of Chicago. Please note FOIA requests are posted online. When you submit FOIA requests, your name information about the request will be made available. So that's fine, So they're saying, hey, you know what? No secrecy here with us. You're pulling somebody's information. Your information is going to be made public too. So click here to submit FOIA requests online. So City of Chicago, they have an online process. Some of them has an email process. Some they have a paper process. Just do it according to each agency. And come in here and find the right place to do it. Chicago Public Records. And so you probably have to set up an account and all that stuff here. So that's enough about FOIA requests. Any questions about that? So let's talk about tracking and opportunity and then to see who won. You have to log in to be able to do some of the things, and I haven't logged in a minute, so I don't have my my password. They change every 90 days. So if I come in here and I'm looking for a construction project, And so this is a solicitation, is due today. You see this one, it's award notice. So if you're tracking this here, if you're tracking from the solicitation phase all the way to the award notice, and it tells you who the awardee is. So let's look at this notice here. So you track it from the original RFP all the way to the award ID here. And you come in here, you can see who won, and they won. Their total contract value was that 40 million? 40 million. So this is how you start to benchmark after pricing. Look at who's winning, the opportunities and what they're winning it for. It gives you a better idea in terms of how you need to prepare your business. Because when you see the RFP, RFQ, you're thinking, okay, if I wrote a proposal and if I put a price together, go through your own methodology of how you determine your price, and then follow it through to see who won and what their prices are, and to see whether you're way off base or whether you are pretty on point. Some of you, if you're newer, this is how you do it. You just have to go through this process and be patient with it. Look at it. It may take 2 months before the award notice is published. It could take 2 weeks. Once it comes out and the due date is passed, at some point, they're going to review it, they're going to award it, and you'll be able to see the prices this way as well. So now there is a service called Govwin.com, and Govwin does have, this is probably one of the more robust services out there. And let me see if I remember my login. I don't remember my login anymore. It's been a minute. So, but if I remember, I'm gonna let Dan do the next part, and if I remember, I'll come back and show everybody this here. And so Govwin costs about $1,000 a month-ish, somewhere around there, just for access to their database here. It's very expensive, but usually they have pretty advanced information. So I'm gonna pause the recording a second here. All right, so let's do a compliance matrix review, and I'm gonna have Dan take it over. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and then let's talk about who has opportunities, and let's look at about 3 or 4 opportunities, and then Dan's gonna choose one to work from. So go ahead, take it away, Dan.
Okay. Again, good afternoon, everyone. So the leading question, who has an opportunity that they want to look at today that they think is suitable for them? And we're going to think about trying to figure the compliance piece.
Put the link in the chat. Put the link into the chat so Dan can go to it from his computer.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, I see one from Aaron. Let me open that up and see what it looks like. So I see something for a system-wide information management segment 3. Is that the one you intended, Aaron?
Yes.
Okay.
Share screen, Dan.
Yes, I'm going to right now. Right there. And anybody else? So let me look at this real quick. So the compliance matrix is a way for you to work down through this and make sure that you don't miss anything. Usually it takes a couple readings. So I'll show you some techniques. So here it is, Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration. So there's the big department, there's the sub department. The due date is June 6th. So it looks like there's plenty of days, plenty of time to get this done. Doesn't look like any particular set aside. So RFI, okay, so it's an RFI. Okay, so we would be using a slightly different format, but I can still do the compliance matrix here. So what I do is start with searching for some keywords because what I'm looking for is, you can hear my four-legged alarm system there. Let me let her out. Anyway, using for some keywords because the purpose of this is to make sure that we don't miss anything that's required. And there's some, okay, so there's, and in this announcement, there's these attachments, which are important to know. And then if everybody who was here yesterday, Abe talked about as you submit a proposal, make sure you recheck and recheck that you've got everything that has been added because, and especially like this one was such a long lead date from April to June, there could be some changes and things made. And oftentimes when there are changes or amendments or attachments, one of the new requirements is to include a copy of that attachment in your proposal, which the government uses as a way to prove that you did or did not see what was required in the last change. So they're all dated. Okay, so let me look at that. I'm going to open this document. Tell me if a document comes up on the share screen piece. Sometimes it doesn't. Open that. Oops, no, wrong file open. So do you see a market survey document or do I need to go back and reshare?
We still see your screen that has the attached links and where you clicked your download link, but
All
nothing
right,
else.
thank you. Stop that share. Start the share. Thank you for letting me know.
I'll bill you later.
Okay. Just take it off what you owe me.
Got it.
So this is the link. Here's the announcement, the intro. Here's the things they're looking for, determine if the requirements can be met, so forth and so on. So what I will do often is I will just search for this word. Oops, come on. There we go. I want to see will, okay? And because you get so much detail, you can determine what you have to do. So the first one, FAA will use this, responses will be used for, but here's something, critical efficiency services which will be needed. And so I'm going to take those words and put them into the compliance matrix. Different question. Does anybody know where to find a blank compliance matrix on their Gov Fast Track? Who knows? Don't everybody answer at once. So out about line 385 or so in the proposal resources, there are several different matrices, and one of them is the compliance matrix, which I'm going to show you here in a second. So this pretty much describes about what this new product will be and how that's going to help you later is in the narrative of what you respond to. But so I'm going to search for a different word. See, okay. So here's it. Here, vendors must express their interest via to the contractor officer, Jorge Martel. So this one would go right into the compliance matrix because if you don't send it to this gentleman, you're not in compliance. If you just go out to the FAA website and pick some other person who looks like a contracting officer, then that is not going to meet the requirement. Here's the must piece. Or here's another one. Solutions must have the ability to do the following things. So as you're thinking of what solution you're going to offer, you're going to have to include these elements. Oops, don't do that. Those three elements. Okay, so let me go back to must.
Are these keywords good for RFIs and RFPs?
I find them, yes. So I search for will, must, shall, and then I go back and reread again. If you have, I'm not sure if I'm going to find it in this RFI thing, but when we have RFPs, all we're going to do, look at that. All right, so as you're sending in so here's another one, see here. Here's some good stuff here. Interested parties must provide responses in writing. Come on. Not sure where the search function is not quite. Come on. give me some results. Because it's not a real word. There we go. So I would take all of these elements here and put them into the compliance matrix. And especially here's a key one. If you have any questions about this market survey, you have to email them to the contracting officer. They're not going to accept phone calls for that. So you can't just call up the guy and say, hey, could you answer my question? You have to send an email to him. And the behind the scenes purpose for that is that they will answer questions, but they answer them in writing, and then they make the answers to all questions available to everybody, often with an amendment. And as you're sending questions, don't send a question that can be answered with a yes or no. Like, is this being advertised by the FAA? Because if you send a question that can be answered yes or no, contracting officers are very terse, and they will give you a yes or no response. So these are the final ones. Okay, so I'm going to. So then what I do, I'm going to get my other thing up here. Come on. So this is the blank compliance matrix. So we fill this out by starting here. Can everybody see this matrix, the compliance matrix for the proposal? Is that what you're seeing on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So just to make it very quick, I'll shorten up this. This is your reference for that. And so I just cut and paste a couple of those sentences. And I'm going to do this. So taking that paragraph from that last page, here's 1, 2, 3, 4 things that are requirements. So if your proposal doesn't meet these standards, it's not going to be acceptable. These are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You can dig deeper into the RFIs and find out. But so here it is, single space Times New Roman 12 font. Your most favorite font may be Calibri 12 or Arial. Doesn't matter. The government wants to see Times New Roman 12. You may have years and years of experience in your company that you want to tell them how good you are, how good your staff is. 1 page. And you're going to put it in writing. So I have to go back and look and see. I think this one's going to be electronic submission. And then they want very readable formats. So if you're not using a big, largely recognized computer-based stuff, they're not going to accept it. I'm not sure what it is, but for example, if there's all kinds of different alternative softwares and formats and things like that, but you need a common one. You can't necessarily use the free no-cost one that you have, because it's not going to may not be compatible with what the government reviewers can look at. And especially if you're submitting in detail or in digits, then you're going to want to submit something that a government reviewer sitting at their government computer can make heads or tails out of and see what you're looking at. So let me look. So the RFIs are sort of a different animal. So I want to go back and see if there's been another. Yeah, okay. So someone said, yep, row 838 of the current GFT software is where you can find that exactly. It's in the attachment. So let's see.
Yeah, for the people in the CCM course right now, you have that on row 838. It's paperclip all the way over to the left.
Mm-hmm. And so the reason I said 835 is because my version of the Gov Fast Track, which is a couple of iterations old, had it at 835. It's all in that general area of proposal resources, and I think it's named exactly. So, okay, so we look at this one. Let me see. So I see Jorge submitted an actual RFI. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna go and look at that and see what's up. All right, he submitted an actual RFP. So that'll have different elements that we can look at. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a few keywords you want to look for. Dan talked about will, must, shall, sometimes the word may or can.
Mm-hmm.
May and can is more like optional, but if you see the word will, must, or shall, that means you absolutely must include it in your response.
So when I set up the proposal matrix, then I will try to get it, and there's entries here for page and paragraph number. You can see all that, and I will try to get them generally try to get them in sequence because that helps me out. This last one that we looked at, the R5, there's a lot of use of the word will. It talks about what the new product will do for the FAA, which doesn't necessarily apply to in terms of how you're going to write a proposal. It's very good background information as you want to offer them the solution. But what we're looking at is what is it going to take to make sure that your proposal hits all the marks and can make it through the door and actually be considered. Anyway, I tend to line these up in page, section, paragraph, sequence. And then if you have a larger team, you can actually see you can actually assign who's going to do it. But if it's all going to be you, John or Sally, then your name's going to be there the whole time. But you may get some help on some stuff. Sometimes people will do the more routine administrative stuff, and then the real technical piece prepared by somebody else so they can explain it in their own language and make sure that there's nothing lost in translation if you try to have a conversation with them and say, well, he said build a car, and instead I'm going to write a bicycle with spokes. So it's important to get clarity on that. Okay, stop that. And so, Jorge, so this, not the share screen. Oops, let me go to chat. So is there a link, or do you want me to just search out for this Navy opportunity, Jorge? First aid training. And for all you people that are a little bit OCD like I, do you notice that the government has a spelling error in their title line here?
Yeah.
You don't want to pull that guy's chain and say, hey, I can give you some FERS aid training. You just tell me what it is. Right, so pretty well big layout again, same thing. Due on the 17th of May, actually a long time. Or no, that's the inactive date. Due on the 2nd of May, so really only about a few days away. Because of that timing, you'd want to, if you thought this was what you wanted, you have to jump on this pretty good. Okay, so this is some standard language, but lowest price technically acceptable. That's a key thing to understand. Lowest evaluated price of the question. And here's the thing, meeting or exceeding acceptability standards of the technical acceptability factor in section M. So you're going to want to be looking at section M. So it's not about whether your proposal meets, it's whether it's that technical acceptability factor, which if it's first aid stuff, it's going to be pretty well described. Yep. Now we're down into the document. So let me see so this is the CPR training statement of work. Recruiter school CPR training. Okay. And then there's a PDF. I'm going to just, because I want to see it first, I'm going to see it. I'm going to look at the PDF first, just to see if so this is the PDF. It's the 41 pages here of the standard form 1449. And it's a form that's used across the government. That's why it has standard form. And there's some important things about this. A lot of this is legal repetition. And I can tell you that just wanted to but we can do the same thing. F. So we're going to search this. So here's a must here. The subcontractor must include 52.9 and you have to research that. Utilization of small business. Okay, and so when I look for the word must, there's 12 references. That's the first one. The next one is offers must complete the following representation when the resulting contract will be performed in the US. So you not necessarily have to complete that submit that with your proposal, or no, you do. So here's maybe a dozen things that you're going to have to do, which is, so this is item C, and then below that is 1 through 6. 6 has its own sub things, 7, 8, 9, 10, and more. So it goes all the way down to, you have to answer these questions anyway. So okay, it goes down to D, and then in D, you're going to have to do that as well. So those are things that I would be copying and putting in the compliance matrix to get those certifications done. Okay, contracting officer must list. Okay, so let me go to the next one. Oops. The offerer must certify to either one of these things. So you have to certify if the contracting officer is identified. You'll find that later. Okay. All officers must submit information required in paragraph, these labeled paragraphs. And that's all just background business information. Offerers kind of, yeah. And now here's an interesting pricing piece. Each claim must be quoted as freight on board at the destination. And who knows what the definition of FOB is? Anybody?
Freight on board.
No, I mean, but what does it mean?
What is it?
What does it mean in terms of money to you?
Well, what that means is they have to have their product first.
No.
Well, the reason I asked the question is I personally don't know exactly the ramifications of FOB, but it's a particular thing having to do with where the money is. And before you want to bid on this, you want to check it out and make sure you do understand exactly what it means and incorporate that into your pricing.
So I know for a lot of the products that I sell, they won't pay until the product's on their loading dock.
Could be, yeah. But I don't know what the actual technical definition of FOB is. It's an accounting term, but there's going to be a definition. You want to take that into account when you do your pricing and stuff, because it may mean the difference between getting all your money up front or getting your money with a huge delay or something in between. Anyway, here's another one. Must provide a full description of the product. Another good side note, samples are not required. So that's good. And here's maybe what they want about FOB right there. Delivery costs must be included in the item price. So it's not like I'm going to sell this to you for $100 or I'm going to provide these services for $10,000 plus $500 delivery. It's got to all be built in.
And that's basically, in a nutshell, what FOB means. There's like 4 levels of shipping. And FOB means it's net, net. What are we going to pay? So there's a little bit deeper technical, but literally that's what it means is we want to know it's ready to go, be picked up. We're not going to have another penny. It has to be complete.
Yeah.
It's like one of the other contracts that I'm working on. They want to know the full cost to include shipping. So when I quote my product, I quote it with the shipping included.
Well, and then the other thing about this is that this particular contract is for training, correct?
It's actually 2 things in one.
All right.
And that's why I'm teaming up with someone.
Right. Okay. All right. Right. Anyway, so, and then there's another little piece of information here. All items for classes shipped or delivered to California, and there's a specific address in the statement of work. Okay, so now I'm going to go to number. Okay. Must provide 3 current relevant references. So if you can only do 2, you're not going to be able to quote. And then also provide this factor here, the lead time for classes. And then this variation of this phrase or variation of it is very significant. Failure to provide the required info may result in non-conformance. Non-conformance means you're not technically acceptable. Because remember, in the beginning, we saw that there was going to be judged on lowest price technically acceptable. And apparent successful. Go ahead.
This particular contract requires equipment plus the training. So there's 2 parts, and that's why I'm teaming up with Michaela Medical. She's providing the training side, the physical training, and I'm providing the products.
So, and then the apparent prospective contractor must have acceptable past performance. So that's twice mentioned there. And then here's an interesting paragraph here. So this is how important it is that they want to know relevant past performance. It says here, may not be evaluated favorably or unfavorably on past performance. So that's significant. So, and yeah.
I have some questions about past performance when you guys, we can wait till you guys get through all this if you want.
Okay. So whatever 52.219-8 is small business concerns utilization, and you must include that in mention of that, and in your proposals. On the date of the subcontractor award, the subcontractor must include, yeah. So there's some research there to understand what all that. And here's the USC 15 USC US code. There's the references about where to find that. Okay, so we're back to the beginning. So that's all about the word must. But in this 41-page document, it took us almost 20 pages before we got to anything of okay. Okay, so I don't care. Okay. So will is a less significant directed word as it goes to what you need to put in your proposal, but I searched for it anyway. So here's an interesting thing here. This is a key thing to look for. What does the government use to evaluate? And so the more of these that you can satisfy, the higher up the more value your response is going to be. And in fact, you have to certify that you do these things. So it's all about the Buy American Free Trade Agreement, all in bow-legged 3 here. And yeah, especially if you're going to have foreign end products. So there's some things to discover there. Still about government evaluating in the Federal Acquisition Regulation Part 25. U.S. made or designated. I'm looking at, so this is about the taxes. They're really not going to let you bid if you're delinquent on your taxes, and there's some caveats to that. But you have to be current on your federal taxes or you don't get the business. And there's a discussion about that there. Again, more about Buy American Act. There's 46 of these. And I'm going to look at shall. None of the, lots of those. So here's Goodwin. Shall email questions concerning sensitive technology. Here's a shall. So that's an entry into the compliance matrix. And part of this thing is ownership and control. So you're going to respond to paragraph 2, which you have to provide that in your response in the proposal about foreign ownership or ownership and control, how this is explained here. But the key to this is that the offerer shall respond. So that's the thing to put in the compliance matrix. And so that when you write your proposal, you can put that response up front. You can put that information right up front. So I don't think you're not doing 7.5 million in the previous fiscal year, are you, Jorge? So you probably wouldn't have to do this, but it's optional to do that representation about public disclosure of things.
A lot of these contracts have the same terminology. They're all 50+ pages or somewhere there around, but they're almost all the same.
It's all standard boilerplate stuff, yeah. And so the good thing about that is that you become familiar with how it's set up. And if you've answered it once, then you can cut and paste and answer it again. You don't want to be yourself an excluded party in SAM or trying to subcontract with an excluded party.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a key thing there. Again, more about
class is officially over in 2 minutes.
All right. So anyway, so all of these things that go into the compliance matrix for you to track and manage, that you're making sure that you're going to answer everything that you can. Because if you, so for example, quotes shall be submitted by one of the following methods. Here's method 1. Actually, it just looks like you just got method 1. If you submit it some other way, you're not going to be acceptable. Simple as that. Talk a little bit. So there's that. And here's more discussion about the basis for award, lowest price technically acceptable. And more discussion. And so Aaron, you had some question about past performance.
Yes. So when I'm trying to fill out my past performance Excel sheet that was provided in the Go Fast Track, my question is, when it's asking for the client name, if I am subcontracting to a contractor that is contracting with the client, is my client on that past performance going to be the person that I worked with directly, or is that going to be the end client?
You want to, on your past performance sheet, you want to indicate who is the prime and who is the end agency itself, or if it's a commercial client. So you want to capture all of that. And then when you actually submitting your past performance to an agency, you want to indicate that this project is with this agency and the prime is this company, and I'm a sub to the prime. So that way, when they're evaluating the past performance itself, they will check the prime and ask the prime or indicate if they know that it's the prime. Because if you don't indicate that you're a sub and there's a prime on it, and they call the reference, they say, hey, do you know Aaron with Triple G? And they say, we don't know who that is. They've never done work for us. You automatically lose that past performance there. So you want to indicate, capture all of that in there.
Okay, that goes for if you're a tier 2 in the commercial world as well. Like sometimes we get contracts that, this is the client, then there's pass it off to a prime contractor, and then they pass it off to someone else who couldn't fill the position, and then they find us and we fill the position. So we're kind of, down there a little bit, but I want to indicate all of those references and contacts.
Yes, and let your references know. Ask your reference to let the actual end user or end customer know, and then so that they're all aware that you are bidding on a project. I mean, if you've done a great job, they want to help you. Most of these folks, they're not like, I don't want to help you. If you did a great job supporting even if you're tier 3 sub to a tier 1 sub, if you did a great job, they will be more than happy to support you on your proposal submission and so forth.
Okay, and then as far as in the IT world, let's say the project itself was, a modernization project, okay, which is a very big project. There's going to be multiple, developers on that project, but we only filled 2 out of the 5 positions. Then, when I'm naming what that project is, do I name that project as what the project actually was? Do I identify that we filled 2 of these slots on this project, and this is, precisely what we did individually? Or how do I kind of word that where it's appropriate, if that makes sense?
The contracting officer who's reviewing the proposal submission, sometimes they will call if you are a tier 2 or tier 3 sub, they will call whoever is the tier on top of you and get that reference. Sometimes they will go directly to the end customer itself. So if you want to provide the information and let them choose who they reach out to.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And then when calculating that price, when we're talking about filling out that past performance sheet, it asks for the project price. I'm calculating what we got paid for what we did in particular, right? Over the length of that contract. That being said, if we're working on, like right now we have a contract, we're a tier 2 contract subcontractor on this project, but the main client is also an IT services company that works with different commercial clients. So we've actually worked on different projects within this client's threshold. So I guess you've kind of answered my question, just making sure that I lay all of that out and identify each and every part is, I guess, what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so you in the proposal narrative, you will say that Triple G is a subcontractor to this company that's on this project. in your proposal past performance narrative, right? So you will put that, indicate that, and then you will list out all the different component. If you know what the total contract value is, put it. If you don't know, that's fine too. Just put the part that you do know, which is your amount to the tier 1 sub, and then let the contractor officer validate that as for your company.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I want to show one more thing. The federal government uses a system called Cpars. It's the Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System. And that's where they keep the formal records of the evaluations of companies that do work. And so I found this description. And so here's a key thing to talk about here, especially if you have yourself experience with the federal government contract or someone you've been subcontracted to does. Here it is. Government officials use multiple agencies are instructed to use the CPAR system to create and measure the quality and timely reporting of performance information. So if you have a federal government contract to use as part of your past performance, it will be to your benefit to mention that or provide that Cpar reference, CPARS reference, or have your prime contractor make that available, or something to the contract, because that's the database that's only accessible to federal government contracting officers and the actual companies that have been so evaluated. Just wanted to say that. So that's what they use. If you have work with the federal government contract, then the evaluation of it will be in the Cpars system.
Yeah, the prime will be on there. If you're a sub, you won't be on that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Dan, because that answered the question I was about to ask.
Okay.
I saw that on multiple contracts that I'm submitting, and at the bottom it states on one of the sections that if you don't have past performance, you won't be given a favorable or unfavorable selection. You'll be given a neutral selection. So they would select me as neutral because I don't have any past performance on Cpars.
Right. So just give me a couple seconds here and I will show you. I think.
What does that mean if you're identified as neutral? Does that mean that they aren't giving you a good or a bad? They're just going to consider you?
Yeah, if you're like me, I'm new going in, they're not going to give me a good or bad. They give me a neutral, and then they based my solicitation on the capability statement. What am I offering? Am I have best offer? They look at the technical pricing. So they go in a little bit more, but I just don't have a favorable or unfavorable on the list right now.
Gotcha. So you're still able to be considered. It's just,
yes,
they do a more in-depth evaluation.
Right.
Yeah,
so, yes. I'm sorry, Dan.
I was going to say my understanding is when they get the evaluation factors ready, and it's usually done by a team or a group or a committee, each person looking differently. Each factor is rated either favorable, neutral, unfavorable, and then they combine all those together for everybody, and that's how they do the scoring to determine who might be, ranked or rated or up in the who's the most acceptable to the least acceptable, all things considered, and then they fine tune it after that. But that's kind of the gross thing. I was looking for can't find it.
I had another question about when you were using calc.gsa.gov last night. For instance, when you look up a software engineer, there's several different tiers to that. There's a 1, there's a 2, there's several different tiers to that. How do you, as an entity, do you identify what those, standards or details are for each level? Or is there a standard to go by out there somewhere?
When you pull up the GSA, if you find those rates, right, go to the actual company and their GSA schedule itself that they submitted to GSA. It will describe, every company have the right to determine the different tiers. So you can, generally there's 3 tiers, but some people have 4 tiers, some people have 5 tiers. And then tier 1 may be high school degree, or tier 2 might be 5 years experience with a master. So it just depends. you define what that is for your own company.
Got it. Thank you.
Let me share one more thing for you here. Okay. This is a company that I worked for many years ago. This is an actual Cpar report that was sent to the company. It's 2 pages, very factual, very straightforward. All the top part is the company information and the contract information. This particular one didn't need a subcontracting plan. But then you get evaluated in these areas, and these are required evaluations. The contracting officer didn't make these up. You're going to evaluate on these, at least these A through F, maybe G factors. Then there's a narrative. And this information is available to other contracting officers, not to other companies, other contracting officers. And then there's this narrative recommendation. And of course, the name of the contracting officer and all that other kind of stuff. So that's what a Cpar report looks like and what it
COR
contains.
stand for contracting representative.
Yeah, COR is the contracting officer's representative. So in this case, in this situation, I'm going to come to the bottom here. In this case, Ms. Benjamin was the contracting officer. She's doing all the contract management, making all the decisions. She has several, like maybe 2 or 3 dozen contracts operating simultaneously under her control, and some being developed and some being closed out. Then there's one person who's her representative, the contracting officer's representative, COR. That person had the most contact with the people performing this particular contract and doing a lot of quality review work. Might be someone who's technically knowledgeable or especially knowledgeable about the particular ins and outs of this particular contract and how it had to be delivered, or what their customer requirements were and all that kind of stuff. I guess the difference would be, think about building an airplane and the government's watching that. So the contracting officer is the person who's handling the paperwork and approving the expenditures and approving the decisions. The COR, the contracting officer's representative, is the person standing on the construction line saying, oh, you didn't put all the bolts in that wing, or you did put all the bolts in that wing, that kind of thing. So
Okay, good stuff, Dan. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
We're a little bit over, appreciate it. And for all of you joining us today, I'm glad that you came on. Hopefully there's been a tremendous value to you. Look forward to seeing all of you at the next CCM on Tuesday night and the next lab in another week from now. Have a good one, everybody. If you have questions, reach out to myself or Dan, and we'll answer any of your other pricing or proposal matrix questions. And we will see you another time. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.